The pairing of Spike and Rarity, or Sparity as it is affectionately known among the fans, is a ship that has already been the subject of probably the most fanfiction and fan art of any pairing of characters from the show. But is it ever going to happen on the show itself? A few months ago I would have said no, not a snowball's chance in hell. Spike's crush on Rarity is along the same lines of a 15-year-old boy having posters on his wall of a supermodel. It's a fantasy, a joke, a thing they just think about to make themselves feel better. I felt sure that even Spike himself knew that deep down he had no chance with Rarity. Then comes Secret of My Excess. Now, I'm going to assume anyone watching this has already seen the episode, so I won't waste any time explaining what happens. But there are 3 scenes from this episode that really fascinated me. The first one is right after the intro. Rarity sees the fire ruby Spike has, and in a blatant case of Rarity want, manipulates Spike into giving it to her. What? Oh, so you don't think that's what happened? Let me explain. Just watch the body language, the way she loiters around for a few seconds after telling Spike how wonderful she thinks the fire ruby looks, or even the look she gives Spike after saying it's magnificent. Tell me she's not turning her charm on because Spike has something she wants. Now, to be fair, Spike does give in pretty quick. If he hadn't given it up so willingly, Rarity probably would have just left it there. Overall, Spike would probably say it was worth it, what with getting kissed and all. Until Twilight cleans his cheek a week later, of course. By the way, is it mere coincidence that Spike displays great generosity here, which also happens to be the element of harmony that Rarity represents? But anyway, this is really the only time I can remember Spike doing something for Rarity, and Rarity actually being very grateful for it, with the possible exception of the ruby she gives him in A Dog and Pony Show. In fact, for a long time during Season 1, I got the impression that Rarity was just exploiting Spike, and that seemed kind of selfish to me, and that really sucks because Rarity's a great character. So it was nice to see some proper gratitude from Rarity for once. And at first, I figured that's all it was. Then, of course, near the end of the episode, Spike as a gigantic dragon kidnaps Rarity. Oh dear, Spike. Well, it looks like you've blown your chances with her now. Oh, wait, she doesn't even realise it's Spike. Well, of course she soon does when he changes back. Then, of course, we get the second interesting scene in this episode, as Spike attempts to confess his love. But Rarity spares him the embarrassment, confirming what I think most of us had guessed by now, that Rarity already knew. That was nice of her, and she even gets a little teary-eyed. Aww. Oh, by the way, whoever at the hub made the decision to bring up the What's On graphic at this point, fuck you! Talk about spoiling the moment. But it's the third scene between the two of them that really made me think that maybe, just maybe, these two could be together. Keep in mind that Spike has practically destroyed Ponyville, kidnapped Rarity, and very nearly got the two of them killed. Now, it's unclear how aware Spike is of what he's doing when he's the rampaging dragon. So maybe baby dragon Spike isn't completely to blame for what he's done as rampaging dragon Spike, but I would say he's fucked up pretty bad for even allowing himself to become the rampaging dragon in the first place. And yet, what is the first thing that Rarity says to him after it's all over?
Spike, I just have to tell you how absolutely proud I am of you.
That's right. Whatever Spike may have caused, however much Rarity or anyone else may have suffered because of it, Rarity is willing to overlook all of that because he did help to fix things in the end. Now, that's quite a noble form of forgiveness from Rarity, considering she suffered more than most. Speaking of which, forgiveness is a form of friendship that hasn't yet been covered on the show yet. Maybe that's something they're going to cover in a future episode. But anyway, it's interesting how this is the first thing Rarity thinks once it's all over. She sees Spike feeling remorse over what he has caused, and immediately goes to assure him it's okay, and that she's proud of him for how he resolved things. Maybe she's humouring him, maybe he doesn't really deserve this kind of praise, but as Donkey said in Shrek, that's what friends do. They forgive each other. Although I personally would find the nickname Spikey Wikey a little condescending, but Spike seems okay with it. Anyway, this is showing a great bond of friendship between the two of them. But Rarity then takes it a little further by saying that Spike is her hero and kissing him. This really intrigued me. In fact, this one moment is really the reason I decided to make this video. I really don't know if Rarity would have taken it this far unless she had some sort of feelings for Spike. It's also interesting how this is basically Spike's fantasy from A Dog and Pony Show coming true. Okay, so the kiss is on the cheek, not the lips, but it's still pretty damn close. That actually makes me wonder if the writers had this planned out back when they wrote A Dog and Pony Show. And it also makes me wonder if they already have plans to develop this relationship further in a future episode. Now, with all this in mind, I still don't think we are going to see this relationship on the show, and there are 5 main reasons for this. The first is the fact that there is too much of an age difference. I mean, Spike is a baby dragon, while Rarity is the equivalent of a woman in her mid-20s to early 30s. The idea of them being in a relationship almost borders on paedophilia. But maybe that's just me overthinking it. The second is the fact that they are different species. And yeah, I know it's a fantasy show and it would be possible, but the idea of a pony and a dragon being together still seems very weird to me. I mean, what would their kids look like? Maybe. That's more likely, I think. On top of that, dragons have a much longer lifespan than ponies. We see in the Cutie Mark Chronicles that Twilight has owned Spike from a fairly young age, and yet he's still a baby dragon even now. He also mentions in this episode that this is his first birthday in Ponyville, which means, assuming that the show runs in real time, dragons don't have birthdays every year because they live for so long. It's also very possible that Rarity will be an old lady while Spike is still fairly young. If they ever did get together, Rarity could stay with him for the rest of her life, but Spike couldn't stay with her for the rest of his. But maybe that just doesn't matter to him. The third reason is that it's a kids' show, and a show meant for fairly young kids at that. The idea of 2 of the main characters in a relationship seems a bit too adult an idea to me. The fourth reason is fairly simple. With all the fan art and fan fiction based on this pairing, why do the writers of the show need to put these 2 together when the fans have already done that? But I will admit that it is hard to look at fan art like this and not want to see something like that on the actual show. I mean, isn't that just so cute? But I still think it's more fun if it's just left open as a possibility. And the final reason is actually something the writers could do something to fix. You see, if I have one major issue with this show, it's the lack of continuity. Very rarely do they ever mention or make reference to things that happened in a previous episode. How many times have the elements of harmony been mentioned outside of the 2 two-parter stories where they are used? When has Rainbow Dash's Sonic Rainboom ever been mentioned aside from Sonic Rainboom and the Cutie Mark Chronicles? Or just watch the 3rd episodes of the first 2 seasons and tell me if you would ever guess that the main 6 ponies had just had an amazing adventure where they saved Equestria together. So I just seriously doubt that the events of this episode are ever going to be mentioned again. Now, as I record this, we haven't seen Spike and Rarity interact with one another since this episode, so I could be proved wrong there. I'll give you an annotation update if and when that time comes. So in closing, I don't think Sparity will ever become canon, but it is still my favourite subject of fan art and fan fiction from the show. And even if it doesn't happen, to adapt a line from Casablanca, will always have Secret of My Excess. It is also one of the main reasons why Spike and Rarity are my favourite and second favourite characters from the show. In closing, I'm Buck, and I support Sparity. See you around, every pony.